Hi guys, this is Tay. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the cutting and sewing tutorial for this Agbada Bubu that you can see right here with a slit in front. This is something you're interested in, you definitely want to stick around. This has been quite trendy for a while, and let me just put this little disclaimer out there. I used this Kampala fabric for the sake of this tutorial. Okay, so if this is something that you would want to wear often, you would want to enjoy, use a fabric that is flowy. You could use like a damask or a duchess fabric, something not stiff as this or the Adire fabric. Okay, if you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for joining. If you're an OG, you know yourself, thank you so much as well for sticking by me. Thank you guys. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Do well to turn on your notification bell as well so you get notified when I post new videos like this. Alright, let's get right into the video. So the first thing to do is to fold your fabric into 4. You fold into 2 and then fold into 2 again. Afterwards, I'm going to draw a starting line which is going to serve as the shoulder line, and from that point all other measurements would be taken. Now on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark the neck width of 3 inches and neck depth of 1 inch and proceed to draw out the neck curve, and afterwards I'm going to mark the shoulder measurements divided by 2. Now from the point where I marked the shoulder measurement, I'm going to add 7 inches to that, just as you can see me do, which is going to be where we're going to have that Agbada effect. And from that point, I'm going to mark 10 inches, which is going to be for my sleeve length. Okay, so let me take it again. You mark your shoulder measurements divided by 2, add extra 7 inches, which is going to be what will give that Agbada effect, and then proceed to mark your sleeve length, and I used 10 inches for my sleeve length. Now from the point where I marked the sleeve length, I'm going to mark 9.5 inch, which is going to be for the sleeve width. You can make yours wider, depends on what you want. I'm going to be using 9.5 inch and I'm going to connect that to the sleeve length. Next, from the shoulder line, I'm going to mark out the bust length, which is 12 inches, and on that point I'm going to mark out the round hip divided by 4, okay, which is the biggest part of the body measurement, which is why I am using that for ease. We don't want it fitted at the bust area. I hope that makes sense. Okay, afterwards I'm going to add an extra 6 inches allowance to the round hip measurement divided by 4 that had been marked already. You can decide to add more. You can use 8 inches depending on how big you want the Bubu to be. Okay, but for me, I'm going to be using 6 inches, which I have gone ahead to mark just as you can see, and I'm going to connect that, creating an armhole curve to the sleeve width. Now I'm just going to take the measurements that I have all the way to the hem of the dress. The full length of this dress is going to be 55 inches, but I'm going to be marking 56, extra 1 inch for folding allowance. Now whatever the length of your dress is, you mark that out, and then you just take the round measurement all the way to the hem, just as you can see me do, and then proceed to roll a line across the marked points. Afterwards, we're going to proceed to pull out the back piece before working on the front. Now that I'm done cutting, I'm going to pull out the inner piece, which is going to be the back piece, and then we can go ahead now to work on the front piece. Now for the front, what I'm going to do is mark 1 inch inward from the center front, just as you see me do, and I'm going to mark that all the way to the hem, and then connect the neck width of the front to the 1 inch, creating a V-shaped neckline. You can see the way I placed my ruler. Make sure you align it in order to achieve that V-shaped neckline. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and connect it all the way to the hem, and then we're going to cut out this piece, meaning we're going to be having 2 front pieces. Now that is done, I'm going to place both pieces of the front on the back, right sides facing each other, and I'm going to use my pin to hold that down at the shoulder. Afterwards, I'm going to head over to my machine and stitch down with 1/2 inch at the shoulder point. Give this a good press, and I'll come back to show you the next step. As you can see, I'm done joining the shoulder. Now the next thing to do is work on the sleeve hem. So I'm going to fold that in twice and stitch down waist, as you can see. As you can see here, I have folded the hem of the sleeve. Next, from one side of the front piece, I am going to measure what I have from the hem all round the neckline down to the other side of the front piece. Okay, so we're going to measure from the hem of one side of the front piece all round the neckline down to the other hem of the second side of the front piece. Okay, I hope that is not confusing, so just watch what I'm doing. I'm using a longer tape which measures about 120 inches, which is quite easy, and by the time I was done measuring, I had about 100 and something inches, which measured about 3 yards and some inches, which I was going to use for the collar effect. So this is what I'm going to cut out on the plain fabric that you'll be seeing from the neckline all through the center front down to the hem of this dress. So here is the plain fabric that I cut out, and on fold it is measuring about 2 inches, which means that when you open it up you have 4 inches. So I pressed that down with my iron on fold, and you can see that I just placed it on the right side of the front piece, and I'm holding that down with my pin, and I'm going to do that all the way around and then head over to my machine and stitch down with 1/2 inch. I'm done attaching the plain fabric, and this is what we have here. So let's leave this for now and move on to achieving the Agbada effect. Now I'm going to open up the sleeves, just as you can see, spread out the dress, get enough space, and then from the hem of the sleeve I'm going to mark 8.5 inches, and from that point where I marked 8.5 inches I'm going to mark 3 inches. Okay, you could use 2.5, you could use 3, you could use 2, depending on how wide you want the pleat, the shoulder to be. Okay, so you're going to pick up the point where you had marked 3 inches and fold up until you get to the point where you had previously marked 8.5 inches. Okay, forming a pleat. All right, just as you can see me do. Arrange it, hold it in place until you get to that point that I just showed you now, where you had marked 8.5 inches. inches. I don't want this to be confusing. Okay, so I'm going to take this from the beginning again. When you spread out your sleeves from the hem, you mark 8.5 inches, and from that point where you marked 8.5 inches, you mark 3 inches. I said you could use 2.5, you could use 3, depending on how wide you want your pleats at the shoulder to be. Okay, and then you pick that point where you had marked 3 inches first, fold up and get to the point where you had marked 8.5 inches in order to form your pleats. Okay, you could iron this down after you've gathered it up. Hold it with your pin so it stays in place. The next thing to do is to go ahead and stitch on this pleat. You can either make a tiny stitch just where you have your pin, or you can decide to go all the way down. But for me, I'm just going to be doing 5 inches to the front and 5 inches to the back. From that point where you want your stitch to end, make sure that you have 3 inches width for your pleats, just as you see me do. Okay, and then you go ahead to stitch on that line. This is it already achieved. Now let's move to the front. You're going to make sure that the fabric you have at the center front overlaps, just as you can see mine. And then from the shoulder, you're going to mark how deep you want the neckline to be. I had initially marked 10 inches but had a change of mind and brought it down to 11 inches, and I'm going to secure that part with my pin. Okay, so you can decide to just make a straight horizontal stitch, or you could make it slant, just as I did, whichever works for you. And then make sure it overlaps all the way to the hem, and we're going to make a very tiny stitch just at the end there, as I've pointed, a stitch that will not be so visible, or shouldn't even be visible at all. Now my dress is going to have a slit in the front. If yours is not going to have one, you just stitch all the way to the end, but mine is going to have a slit. So from the hem, I'm going to come up with about 16 inches for the slit opening. Okay, so that point where I marked the 16 inches, that is where I am going to stop my stitch, and the rest is going to be an opening. So as you can see, I'm done stitching. We have our slit opening at the hem as well. Now the next thing to do is to turn this to the wrong side and close up the sides. I'm going to be doing that with 1/2 an inch, so you make sure all sides are lined. You can use your pin to hold it down in place, and if you feel you can stitch without pinning, then go ahead. So I'm going to close up the sides and also fold the hem of the dress. So this brings us to the end of the making of this Agbada Bubu. If you have any questions, please be sure to drop it in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to respond. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do not forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Please engage my videos. Anywhere you feel confused, reach out to me and I'll respond. Alright, so until next time, this is goodbye from me.